with the Nintendo Direct currently in the cards for this Friday, I figured it'd be a good time to sort of go over my expectations on what I'm personally expecting. And I know what you're thinking. Lauren's gonna be so hyped. She's gonna be making up all of this like amazing stuff. She's gonna say there's a new Animal Crossing, there's gonna be a new Fire Emblem, there's gonna be a new everything. And honestly, guys, my expectations are pretty close in check here. So let's get into it a little bit. We do have the leaked date for this Nintendo Direct, which is September 12th. That is this upcoming Friday. And this is a little bit of a weird date. Nintendo doesn't really do Directs super often on Fridays. And this also would include an announcement that would probably be on the 10th or the 11th. And obviously, September 11th is a very important day in US history. And so a lot of people kind of assume Nintendo would avoid that. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but that's for another video. But this day especially is important because it's the day before the Super Mario series 40th anniversary. And so we'll sort of get into that a little bit later, but I think it's very important to note that kind of right off the bat here. But, Nintendo Direct, super exciting, right? And I see a lot of people saying this is a super important Direct for Nintendo. They really need to blow us out of the water. I'm not expecting to be blown out of the water, quite frankly, and there's a couple reasons why. And I'll clarify when I say that. I mean, I don't expect to be blown out of the water by new game reveals. I'm not expecting too many new game reveals, quite frankly, unless it's sort of to go along with the Mario 40th. And I'll sort of get into that here in a minute, but what we know about Nintendo Directs is that they often, at least for the general ones, which as I assume this one will be, the direct time is usually probably around 40 to 45 minutes of new information. All things considered, that's not really a lot of time for what we currently know right now. That includes a whole bunch of stuff. It includes the transitions, the third-party montages, everything. And I don't think 40 to 45 minutes is enough time for the direct that people want. I think in order for them to have a direct that people are hoping for and the direct that people are wanting to see with regards to the Switch 2, we want that direct to be akin to the Nintendo Switch 2 direct earlier this year that was around 60 minutes, which is 1 hour. And there's a couple reasons why I say that. So honestly, let's just get into it. What do we know that will likely be in the Nintendo Direct? And let's just say, like, the things that are likely will be like 5 minutes each, including whoever's talking about it, release dates, all the important stuff. And I think to, start off strong here, Metroid Prime 4, we gotta know more about Metroid Prime 4 by the end of this direct. Personally, what I'm expecting is a trailer and a release date. I also think that they're probably going to have a direct announcement for more information on the game, particularly if that comes out this year, which it's still scheduled to be. So I'm honestly think it's gonna be the December game. It's just sort of like what I'm thinking right now, but we really need to have more information on that. So I think guaranteed we can get 5 minutes on that easily. Then we have Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Now, obviously, we saw a little bit more of this game in the last Nintendo Direct, which was more of like a partner showcase sort of thing. And we got another trailer on that, but very pointedly, no release date. We just got stuck with that winter announcement period once again. And that was really interesting. And you might be wondering, like, Lauren, it's only been like a month and a half since that. How would they have a release date? And honestly, I just think they have to give us one or it's gonna slide into spring 2026, which, I mean, it could. But I think there's other games that would be a much better suited game to come out in spring 2026. So, for this Nintendo Direct, I'd expect Hyrule Warriors to get a trailer, and I think we do finally get a release date of that game. I'm thinking it's January. I think that's a good January 2026 game. They did say winter. December, I think, is going to be, it's either going to be Metroid Prime that slips into January 2026, or it's going to be Hyrule Warriors. And I just think that Nintendo's going to be trying very hard to get Metroid Prime 4 out this year. considering all the delays we've gotten. I was in my freshman year of college, I believe, when that game first got announced at E3, and now I am well on my own, graduated college, and now I have my own job. So it's been a really long time. So given the trailer and a release date, I'd say like that's an easy 3 to 5 minutes. I'd maybe lean on the 3 end for that one, just because we just got a trailer for it like fairly recently, but still, you know, 3 to 5 minutes of just being like, what you just saw is Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment coming January 2026 to Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2, or I think it's actually just Nintendo Switch 2, but you get my drift. For the next thing that I'm thinking will very likely show up in the Nintendo Direct, just because we know, for better or for worse, Nintendo really loves this series, and they obviously made the announcement for this game pretty early, was Splatoon Raiders. We only got really a drop on the Nintendo app, or the Nintendo Today app. I was just randomly like, hey guys, new Splatoon game, and we were like, what? And so I'm just thinking, Nintendo really loves Splatoon. Personally, I wish they would just work more on Animal Crossing. And that's for another video. I feel like I could really get into like development between Animal Crossing and Splatoon, and that would make some really interesting conversations. But I think we get a trailer for this game. I think we get release timing, but I don't think we actually get a release date. I think we get like either spring 2026 or summer 2026. Honestly, summer 2026 seems to be a vibe for that game. Maybe it's like the June game, June 2026. But I don't think they'd actually say June. I think they'd say like spring or summer or, you know, whatever. I don't think they will leave it untimed, just because there's honestly still a lot coming to Switch and Switch 2 next year. So I think they do give it like at least like a season. But I think that'll definitely be showing up in the Nintendo Direct, just because we know how much Nintendo loves to talk about Splatoon. And then last but certainly not least, Mario 40th. Let's talk about that a little bit, because there's a couple different ways that this could go, right? So this could be something as simple as we're celebrating Mario's 40th and there's going to be a Nintendo Direct next Tuesday, whatever date that is. So stay tuned for more information. Or it could be a complete blowout, and we could not only get a major 3D Mario announcement, but we could get the Direct announcement for that 3D Mario game, and you know, it could even be longer than 5 minutes. Honestly, if it's the closer, like if it's the Nintendo Direct closer, I could easily see that being 5+ minutes. 5 maybe to 7 or 8 minutes, if it's a new game trailer. If we get something for the movie, if they have like any sort of other device that they come out with. Obviously we know they had the Game & Watch for the 35th anniversary, and they usually like to have like a little bundle of something. Maybe we finally get Super Mario Galaxy 2 finally coming out for the Switch 2 in like a remake package, but you never know. But yeah, easily 5 to 8 minutes, I think, depending. And so, like, theoretically, like, let's just say 5 minutes for each of those games, right? So that's Metroid Prime 4, 1, Mario 40th, 2, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment for 3, and then Splatoon Raiders for 4. 5 minutes each, easily 20 minutes. Easily 20 minutes. And so let's just remember that the Nintendo Direct time is usually 40 to 45 minutes. That's, like, about half of it, just on games that we A, already know about, or B, are very heavily expected to come in this Nintendo Direct. And none of those include anything like mind-blowing, right? I mean, obviously 3D Mario is extremely exciting, so exciting. But it's also like, we're kind of expecting it, right? We're kind of thinking that for sure, Mario 40th, there's gonna be a new 3D Mario game. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's like one of those things that people are really like, it's gonna blow people out of the water, but not in the same way that like, oh my god, we got 3D Mario, and we got Zelda, and we got like Fire Emblem, and we got like Xenoblade, like all this stuff. I think let's just keep that in mind, right? But those aren't the only things that could be there, right? So what else could possibly be at this Nintendo Direct? We know that Switch Force, who had been the original person to report on this Nintendo Direct, has said that there's gonna be 3 sevens, right? And I think that's probably going to include Final Fantasy VII Remake. maybe we get Final Fantasy VII Rebirth as well. I think if Remake is coming to Switch 2, they're definitely gonna bring Rebirth over. And that was obviously already like announced like forever ago that there would be a Final Fantasy VII Remake version coming to Switch 2. We already know about that. But we don't have a date for it. And we need a date for it. And we need to see footage for it. So I think that's heavily likely to go into the Nintendo Direct, but I don't know for absolute certain. It could be just in the montage reel. I don't know. But I think it's a big enough game that they'd probably want to give some focus to it. Coming up next on what else could be there, Rhythm Heaven, right? We got the pair of Nintendo Direct announcements earlier this year for Rhythm Heaven and Tomodachi Life. And honestly, I'm thinking one or the other will be there. I think it's gonna be Rhythm Heaven. I think they saved Tomodachi Life for a hypothetical February Direct next year. Maybe they just put it in like, oh, it's coming to Switch 2 or Switch and Switch 2, but we're not gonna tell you anything else until next year, sort of thing. Because it's stated for 2026, as is Rhythm Heaven. But Rhythm Heaven strikes me as like a easy, like early 2026 game. I'm really looking forward to it. But again, both Rhythm Heaven and Tomodachi Life are games that we already know about, right? In terms of other games that, we already know about and could easily be there, Elden Ring, right? Elden Ring being a really big title coming to Switch 2. Obviously, we just had those rumors and, kind of footage. I don't even want to say rumors, really, because we did see footage of the game looking a little rough on Switch 2, but that was an old build. I think especially since we just had Star Wars Outlaws come out and people were like, oh my god, it's so rough, and then the game is actually performing really well on Switch 2. I think people will be surprised with how well Elden Ring runs. So, you never know. You could see Elden Ring getting a trailer and it not actually look that bad. But I think that will definitely be at the Nintendo Direct. But again, I kind of put it in this section because there's still a possibility that it gets kind of moved to like, here's an announcement and that's it, and maybe a short trailer and 3 minutes for that, maybe up to 5, who knows. And then last but not least, we got this really interesting announcement during the Switch 2 initial announcement direct, and that was that From Software is making a game specifically for the Nintendo Switch 2, and that's the Duskbloods. And so I don't think this is going to get anything too much. Maybe we get a trailer and it's just like, look forward to more details soon, and just give it like 3 minutes just as a little overview, and people are gonna be like, wow, that looks really good. But that's like, it could be in, it also might not be in. It's just a game that we already know about. It might be a little bit too soon, I think, for that. So that's kind of why I have it towards the end of my list. And then the very last thing I wanted to talk about, because I already see people saying that they think that it will be in the Nintendo Direct, and I'm not completely sold on it. It could, it might be, but here's my thought process, right? Pokemon Legends CA. That is a game coming out in just over a month and a week as of recording this video, and we are getting a new Mega Evolution confirmed announced on Wednesday, which is 2 days from now. We already know we're getting that. We also already got details and footage at the Pokemon World Championships, which was a couple weeks ago. I just feel like if they were going to show anything in a Nintendo Direct, I think they would have saved the Mega Malamar announcement. Hi, friend Malamar. I feel like they would have saved that announcement for the Direct itself, and I feel like it wouldn't have been like, oh, by the way, we're announcing this mysterious new Mega that everyone knows is Malamar this Wednesday. So I don't really know if it's gonna show up at this Nintendo Direct. If it does, it's probably gonna be like a 3-minute thing. So anyway, let's do some math again, right? We had like 20 minutes for the last thing. So let's say hypothetically, like, we get, I don't know, 4 out of the 5, 4 out of 6? 4 out of 6 of these games, right? And that comes in at 12 minutes. That's already 32 minutes on the very lowest end for things that we already know about coming for this Nintendo Direct. 32 minutes and that's again on the low end. Hypothetically, if we include an extra, like I'm accounting for either Rhythm Life or Tomodachi Life, and I'm also including ZA not being there, but hypothetically, if ZA is there, and if we get Tomodachi Life and Rhythm Heaven, at the 3-minute mark for each of these, and again, some of these could be 5 minutes, but at the 3-minute mark for all 6 of those, we come in at 18 minutes for that section. 18 plus another like 20 minutes. That's 38 minutes already accounted for out of 40 to 45 minutes. So let's talk about that, right? Because we're not including an opener, we're not including a closer, and hypothetically one of these could be that. Honestly, 2 things could be that. They could open on Elden Ring and end on Mario 40th. I don't know. But even if they did do that, that still is like, that's only enough time for maybe 1, maybe 2 new games to sort of get dropped, right? That's sort of the reason why I don't think we should set our expectations high for brand new Switch 2 announcements. I think we're going to get a lot of details of what we already know. I think we're going to get more info on Metroid Prime 4. I think we're getting that 3D Mario in the Mario 40th announcement. We're definitely getting details on Final Fantasy VII Remake, Elden Ring, Splatoon Raiders. I just feel like we should probably keep things in check, right? If we get a new game, I've seen so many people saying things that they want. They want a new Xenoblade. They want Fire Emblem Genealogy Remake, which, me too. They want 3D Mario. They want a lot of things. They want Animal Crossing, you know? They want other, like, IP from Nintendo to come back. Star Fox. We haven't seen Star Fox in, like, a decade. I don't think there's enough time for everyone to get what they want. And I don't think there's enough time for there to be massive third-party blowouts that people want. I don't think there's enough time for there to be massive Nintendo blowouts for what people want. Unless we see that Nintendo Direct get announced on probably Wednesday, get announced for 60 minutes, I just don't really think that there's going to be as much as what people want, and I think we should talk about that. And I think we should keep our expectations in check that we're probably not going to get a whole lot of actually new stuff. And, you know, that 32 to 38 minutes, that doesn't even include, like, anything being 5 minutes in that second section I mentioned. It doesn't include any of the third-party montages that we always get. We know we always get. And that also doesn't include, like, sometimes they like to include, like, here are some recent games that came out on Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2. And they do a montage of that. So that, it doesn't include any of that. It doesn't include any of the transitions of, like, the narrator being like, dive deep in this Nintendo Switch 2 game. And it's like Endless Ocean being ported or something like that. That's not to say this Direct is going to be bad, right? We all want information on Metroid Prime 4. We all want to see what's coming for Mario 40th. I know there's a lot of people that really like Splatoon and are really excited for Splatoon Raiders. You know, and the third-party stuff, right? Like, Final Fantasy VII Remake and Elden Ring coming to a Nintendo console, like, that wasn't possible a year ago. And now here we are, it's the Switch 2, and we can have these big third-party games. I'm so excited to buy Final Fantasy VII Remake on Switch 2. Do I already own it on PS5? Yes, but it's not a Switch 2, and I may be loyal to Nintendo to a fault. I think that is really the bulk of it. That, you know, again, that's not to say that something couldn't be longer or shorter. Like I said, Mario 40th could be an opening or closing. Honestly, if I were Nintendo, what I would personally do is Elden Ring as the opener and probably Mario 40th as the closing and sprinkle in everything else in there. But it could also easily be Metroid Prime 4 as the opener and Mario 40th as the closer. We just don't know. Anyway, did want to make this video real quick to sort of talk about that, as I think it's important to talk about and not super overhype things. And that is all. So this has been Met Lauren, and I hope you have a wonderful day.